Welcome Home, a podcast for veterans, about veterans by veterans, is a project of Willing Warriors and the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm your host, Larry Ziliaks. Welcome to the Welcome Home podcast here at the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run. For our first podcast, we're very excited to have as guests the founders of the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run, John and Shirley Dominick. Welcome.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Nice to be here.
Larry, so nice to see you. Thanks for having us.
Well, we're pretty excited about launching the podcast and just being able to sit down and have a conversation with you and give our listeners the opportunity to learn about the history of the Warrior Retreat, how it started,
Yep.
What all has gone into it the last 10 years. So, John, I wanted to start with you. And can you tell us just a little bit about how the Warrior Retreat came to be? What was the very beginning?
It goes back to 2006. We have small groups in our church. They're small group Bible study groups, and one weekend, our pastor challenged all the small groups to start a project of 40 days to go out into the community, to do something good for the community, and to just take whatever you've been learning and hearing in the messages at the church, bring it out into the community and give of yourselves. So what our small group decided to do was to go and visit the wounded warriors at Walter Reed Hospital. It was about October, and we figured, well, let's go and make it a Christmas visit. A lot of them are there alone. They don't have family. We'll go and we'll just try to do something to cheer them up. We'll bring a little present, a little gift to them, some food. And so that's what we decided to do. And this whole project was based on a book written by Rick Warren. It's called 40 Days of Purpose, or Purpose-Driven Life, actually. Purpose-Driven Life. Mm-hmm. And it just talked about what am I here for? What are we here for? Where are you now? What can you do to help someone, to give to someone? So that's what we did. We went to the hospital. We had an eye-opening experience, to say the least. And we talked with the warriors, we talked with their spouses, we talked with their parents. And when we left, we kind of drove home in almost silence. We didn't know really what to say to each other. When we got home, we looked at each other and we said, this is something that we can continue to do because there's a real need for it. So let's do that. Let's continue to do the Christmas visits. And we added a couple of years later, we added summer barbecues, and then we added Fort Belvoir Hospital to the yearly annual visits, mm-hmm. And we kept growing, and one thing led to another. We got to a point, and we said to ourselves, "What could we do to give them something a little more substantial?" And we needed money, we needed funding to do something more substantial. We didn't even know what it was at the time, so we started our nonprofit, and we started coming up with turkey trots and 5K runs, motorcycle events and golf events to raise money. And finally, we did come up with an idea, and it was presented by a Marine who was wounded in Iraq. And he had the idea for a retreat to get the wounded warriors out of the hospital, get them someplace where they could relax and enjoy. And said, that's a good idea. Let's do that. So that's what we started down that road, and we got the nonprofit going. And then the next thing we needed was a property to start on the retreat. And he also had this Marine had an idea of a vision of a property that he described to us. And my wife Shirley started looking, and I think she'll tell you exactly what happened with that search for the property, which was what we call a miracle. Really, the whole retreat is a miracle. It's gone through and come through at this point. So that's where the seed started a long time ago. And this is right now, we understand what that book was trying to say, a purpose-driven life. What are we here for? What can we do?
Yeah, you lived it.
We're here for giving back. We didn't know it at the time. We had no idea what was going to happen at the time.
Yeah.
And looking back, it's just been a wonderful experience. So, we're growing and we're continuing to grow. We got a beautiful staff and volunteers. It's a family now that we're doing this all together, and the positive energies and the love is just multiplying all the time within us and the warriors that come here. So we're happy to keep doing it.
Shirley, what do you remember about that very first visit to Walter Reed?
Yeah, that first visit was, I think, the big turning point for not only our family, but a lot of the other families that came with us. I would say out of the community, the church and surrounding areas, we took about 25 people with us, but we had 50 gift bags. And I remember the time that we spent as a group pulling those bags together for Christmas. And, it was special because now we're going to go visit the warriors for Christmas. And so what does this mean? We had a $25 gift cards in all of the bags. And the event was supposed to start at 4:30. We got there about 3 o'clock. And by 4 o'clock, our 50 gift bags were gone. And so we're kind of looking at each other saying, what in the world? Why are we even here? That's what I'm thinking. Why in the world are we here? We're supposed to be starting a party. In 30 minutes, we have no gifts, and on top of that, we had pizza delivered. And what was interesting with that is all the pizza were gone at 4 o'clock. So we got a party about to start with no gifts and no food.
Wow.
So what a party,
Yeah.
right? And I recall, I always think about the one amputee female. She was in a wheelchair, and they had probably about 7, 8 people behind her, warriors. And here it is 4 o'clock, and she looked at me and she said, "Ma'am, no more pizza either." and I didn't know what to say. I mean, I have no food. I have no food, no gifts.
Yeah.
So here we are, having a visit, a party, with nothing to start with.
Mm-hmm.
But I began to look around, and I tell you what touched me so much is to see that literally everyone that we had with us, that group of 25 plus, they were totally engaged with warriors and their families. And we really, we stayed there 3+ hours with the warriors and their families. And I remember trying to leave, and I looked over, and my 3 daughters, they were literally locked arm in arm with this double amputee. He was from Peru. I'll never forget him, Oscar. And they didn't want to leave. Here it is, a 19-year-old double amputee. He was there with his brother, who was 18 years old. And then my 3 daughters, I mean, they, like I said, they just bonded in such a special way and did not want to leave. And I think that's what the whole group felt.
Mm-hmm.
And like John said, is when we pulled up in that garage, we know we had to do more. And so what was that more? We had no idea what that more would be, but
Right.
we pulled ourselves together and decided that we would do barbecue. We'll visit, we'll become a friend with the warriors, and realizing too that what they needed was companionship. They really needed to hear from somebody outside.
Mm-hmm.
You got a sterile environment there that all these warriors, they're going through about the same thing, and to actually see a new face and hear a new voice, it was life-changing. And so that's kind of where it started. And,
And it continued on for a number of years, and then on about 2011, I think you met a warrior who sort of gave you another vision.
Oh yeah, that was I don't know if
Yeah.
you want to talk about that, but that's
Yeah,
another.
well, that was something after we did a number of visits for with the barbecues and the Christmas visits, and then you had joined us shortly after we started that. We kept thinking there's got to be something more. We just don't want to go for a week. It's okay to go for the week or a day and just talk to them, have some
Camaraderie and
uplifting conversation, and they light up. We're encouraged. What could we do more? Something more substantial. So we started talking about a nonprofit, and what the nonprofit would do is we'd be able to generate some more funds to expand what we were doing at Fort Belvoir and at Walter Reed.
Yeah.
So then it was a Marine. He was wounded in Iraq. He heard about us, and he started joining our group every week, our group meetings, and he had this vision of a retreat. He said, that's what he was thinking of doing, and he had this dream of starting a retreat where the warriors could come, the wounded warriors could come out of the hospital, spend a little time there, and that's where that idea started. We picked up on that.
Yeah, and I think too, and I go back to Christmas of 2011. That's the time when Walter Reed closed. So now the place that we used to go, the Malone House, to visit the warriors, there's no more visit there. So now where do we go? Unfortunately, we had a relationship with people there at Walter Reed, and they gave us instructions. You go to Walter Reed at Bethesda. That's the new plant now. And we split it up between Bethesda and Fort Belvoir. So now we had two frontier that we really had to work. And what was really, really interesting during that time, we were putting together, now remember 2006, we did 50 gift bags, okay? Now here it is, 2011, we're over 500 gift bags. And now we're taking this between Fort Belvoir and Walter Reed, just kind of life-changing for our warriors. We didn't want to give up because Walter Reed was closing or closed for us to visit. The warriors still needed some companionship, especially Christmas time. But there was a guy, Ruben, that told me while we were putting these bags together, he was the fourth person that said to me, you got to start a nonprofit. And I remember when Ruben said, this is the number 4, he goes, but Shirley, I'll be right behind you. And, I have a problem with that because, like I said to him, Ruben, I'll be behind you. Let me be behind you. And so we kind of laughed about it. Had no idea. But what he said at that time, too, he said, I have a warrior friend of mine. His son and my son, they go to Boy Scouts together. And I think he could benefit from an organization if one was started. And so fast forward in April of 2012 is when I contacted, finally, I honestly say only God, because when we talk a nonprofit 501c3, I remember it singing in my ear for 4 months, and I was running away saying, no way, because I have a 9-to-5 job. We're both have so many things going, and children in school, there was no way we're going to do anything else. And so
A lot of work.
Had no idea what a nonprofit was. So
I think a lot of people, if they knew, they wouldn't start.
Yes.
are you
I was just going to
kidding?
say, if we only knew then what we don't know now, now
It'd been a different story for sure.
Yeah.
But like I said, Ruben was the first one that we called when we decided that we would do the nonprofit, and he gave us the contact of the warrior who came to our first meeting, and he had this vision, and that's the reality of kind of how we got here. He had this vision. He was telling the whole group that was there that night, probably about 8-10 of us around the table, and he started talking about a house. There was a house on the hill. He described the landscape. He mentioned 77 acres, and that's the thing that for me, when I heard that, he was talking specific things about this place, as if he knew it already. I remember Jennifer, one of the girls around the table, she said, it sounds so real, we need to name it right now. It just was kind of weird naming something that we didn't even know. And it was that night that I went to bed, and I'll never forget it, because I always say, when you feel restless, there's something about that feeling that you have to discover, whatever that is. Because for me, I couldn't sleep. And 4 o'clock that morning, I remember getting up and I literally typed in 77 acres, Virginia. And this house showed up. I had no idea.
Yep.
And that's literally how it kind of
Came to be.
It came to be. And
Yeah.
so it's pretty wild looking back.
Now, what it looks like now was not what it looked like then.
No.
And so, John, tell us what it took to remodel this house.
Oh, it's a Herculean effort. And it was a miracle. That's all I can say. You talk about the seed and where the seed was planted, and the way we found it. You Googled it, and we found it right in our backyard,
Literally.
Yeah.
a few miles down the road from the church. It was a miracle. But anyhow, we found the property, got a contract on it, and we immediately there were some renters in the house at the time, and as soon as their lease was up, we came in with a ragtag team of volunteers from the
Everywhere.
church and from everywhere locally, and we started demoing the house inside. It was built in 1977 and badly needed repairs. There was no update on the house at all since 1977. So we just basically started pounding on it, and shortly after that, one day, Tom Roselius, he was one of our board members at the time. We were handing out flyers for an upcoming motorcycle run, the fundraiser that we wanted to do. He happened to hand a flyer to this one person, and the person looked at it and he said, "I don't ride motorcycles, so I don't know what I could do for you." And Tom said, "Well, why don't you just come up to the property and see what we've got, and maybe you could help us, maybe you could be a volunteer or something." So he was interested in that. So he came up to the property. I met him here, and I gave him a tour of the property. I showed him what we were doing, and he kind of looked at it with his open eyes and his jaw was dropping. I was wondering why, but this guy turned out to be a local contractor, a builder.
Yeah.
And so he came to our next board meeting, and when we sat down with him at the table, and we again discussed to him what we wanted to do, what we're thinking of doing, and after I gave him my pitch or my explanation of what we were doing, he looked at me and he said, "I don't want you to do another thing to this house." And I said, what do you mean?
You've damaged it enough.
Yeah, really.
Thank you.
So, what do you mean? He said, "Look, I've been looking for a project. There's been something on my heart. I've been looking for a project to do, give back to, in the community." And he said, I'll take this project over for you. I'll get my contractors, I'll get my suppliers, and we'll come down and we'll help you. We'll start working on this house, and we'll do what we have to do for your purposes. So sat down with an architect, told him what we wanted to do. Of course, we had to be ADA compliant for the disabled warriors that were coming, and that's exactly what we did. And what he did, I kind of looked at him at the table, and when he said that, I said, "I'm from Missouri, but I hear a lot of stuff from people that want to help."
Right.
And then you go back to them the next week, and it's
Something come
I'm
up.
busy right now, but
Yeah.
and then 2 weeks go by, and then 3 weeks, and then it's forgotten about.
Yeah.
This guy, he actually came back to me and said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's where we're going to start. We sat down with an architect, drew up the plans, and boom.
Okay.
It did take
Took a couple of years.
took a year and a half, almost 2
Yeah.
years.
2 years.
But we had to work with the time windows of all the contractors
Yeah,
and supplies and everything.
they're all volunteers.
So over that period of time, we must have had 150 different suppliers or contractors hands into this project.
It was
And
a
at the
huge-
end of it, it came to over $1 million
Sure.
worth of pro bono work.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing.
And so we finished the remodel, and now we're at July 4th, 2015. And it's the
Yeah.
ribbon cutting. You remember that?
Oh, I remember.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you what, I remember July 3rd well, too. So July 3rd, I get chills just thinking about it because I pulled up in the parking area, and first I noticed that it was hardly a place to park. Okay, and secondly, I noticed that everyone was out. Everyone was out doing something on this house. I don't care whether they were 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 60-year-old, they were out. And I sat in my car watching. I remember seeing a father and a little 5-year-old, Annie. They were painting the fence. They were painting the fence. People were trimming the tree. They were cutting the lawn. They were hauling stuff to the dumpster. I always talk about this one couple, like they were hauling stuff to the dumpster all day long. And I remember stopping them at some point, and I said, just want to get a picture of them. Because the best thing I can do for me as a person, and they didn't know me from anyone else. They were just here for the cause. And so I remember stopping this couple, and it said, "What brings you out here today?" And they looked at me in unison, and they said, "This is our 50th wedding anniversary. That's why we're here. You know, no better place to be." And so
Wow.
I said, everyone took this project as if they took it personal.
Yeah.
It was their project, and they were cleaning like we would clean with our guests coming to our house, right? So this is the 3rd of July, and I'm telling you, when they got through that day, the place was polished. It was literally polished to a point that, you know, warriors and their family, you know, they would feel a difference coming in. But I think when I look back on the 4th, though, I got chills literally over and over, especially when I looked around and I was about to give my presentation. I was shaking at the knees, not knowing what to say, but I look in the audience and I realized that these people didn't know me or John, but they came for a cause. They came because they either had family, some relative, son, daughter, mom, dad, that was connected to the military to some degree, or they were just patriotic about their country. They wanted to serve and be a part of it. And I was literally speechless, you know, trying to find the right word. And I remember sitting there by Senator Black, and he leaned over and he said, "Shirley, just keep it together." And I was like, "Oh, why did he say that?" Because I was trying to keep it together, but now I'm losing it. And it was just it was so real to see the care, you know, that the community have for the warriors.
Yeah.
The thing I remember most about that day is we had a number of political speakers here, and they rambled on, and just about the time all the speeches were done, it poured rain.
Skies opened up.
It did.
And everybody ran for their cars, and we were like, "Hey, wait a minute! What about the open house? Come and see the house!" And we had to kind of
Change things.
think fast and
Shift
said, "Okay,
gears.
we'll be here tomorrow for open house." And a good number of people came back that Sunday and toured the house, and it was a great success. And then with the ribbon cutting over, we did some function checking, and got a few veteran families that we were familiar with and then we got our first families from Walter Reed over the week of November, Veterans Day. And so now fast forward, and we're looking at over 1,900 warriors and family members and friends. And then in 2019, along came Penn Fed, and we built a second house. And I think it went a little bit smoother.
It went smoother. It did. It still went beyond what we thought it was going to take. It took about a good year to get that one up from the ground up. But we did it kind of half. We had it halfway funded by Penn Fed. But we still needed another half funded somehow. And we did it the same way we renovated the first house. We just contacted all of our old or contractors and suppliers that helped us with the first house. And they came and they did the same thing with the Penn Fed house. So that's how we were able to really do that. The beauty about what we're doing here, not only for the warriors, and it's what we're doing for the community, the local community too, because it's some place where people can feel good about giving back, about volunteering and getting involved in something. And it's just like a snowball. The energy is just contagious. It's such a positive, uplifting, and wonderful thing to do for everybody that they just want to do more and more all the time. So that's how this whole miracle is happening, and it's continuing to expand. And we don't know where it's going to go, but I got a feeling it's going to keep going for quite a while.
We sort of know a little bit about where it's going to go because Shirley, you established a relationship with the folks at Penn Fed Foundation, and they have just really helped us out. They're continuing to help us out because they're funding a good portion of the brand new Penn Fed Grand Lodge, which will break ground on hopefully this month, actually, and start construction over there. Tell us a little bit about our relationship with them, and how that came about, and just how wonderful it's been.
I chuckle because everything it goes back to a miracle again, right? So just imagine this, Larry, for a second. So we have a Monte Carlo night coming up, right? This is February, and we needed some items for auction. So my daughter, along with Becca, decided to go to Middleburg and try to knock on doors with little stores and just get some things that we can auction off. Well, lo and behold, as they were going, they realized, Becca said, I don't have any cards. Kelsey said, take some of my cards. And so Becca goes into one of the stores there that carry men's suits or men's clothing, and gave him a card, and he actually gave an item for us to auction off of. But lo and behold, this guy comes to our first VIP meeting that April, and so what I recall from this whole setting, our first VIP meeting, we had about 15, we said, influencers that came from the area, and I was telling them the story. But as I was telling them the story about our trip to Walter Reed and so forth, I remember this guy in particular because he was teary-eyed and he kept wiping his eyes, and he came up after and he asked for an extra package. He said, I got a friend I want to give it to. Lo and behold, the same card that Becca gave to him of Kelsey triggered an email to Kelsey. And Kelsey said, Penn Fed wants me to come and present to them. I said, how do they know you? I don't know. So long story short, it was probably a couple weeks later that we both are headed out to Penn Fed to meet somebody, and I'm thinking it's going to be a quick drive-by. Let me just go and give them these 4 slides, and I'll be out of there, right? On my way out, I'm knocking on Kelsey's door, and she's sleeping. She said, "Mom, I was making dress all night. I cannot go." And I'm saying, okay, the email wasn't even sent to me, and I'm going to go, okay? And I had a couple appointments later that afternoon. I said, this is just making my schedule so busy. It was like one of those things that just, why? And so I go to PenFed there in Tyson's Corner. They just got into their brand new building. And I'll never forget, I just checked into security, and all of a sudden I get this text from Kelsey saying the meeting was canceled. I said, well, I'm here now. It's too late. By then, the security had already called James Shank's office. And I got on the phone with his exec, and he said, "You're downstairs? Well, I'll meet you." And it wasn't until I got into the elevator when he said, "Well, we're going to the CEO's office." My heart started racing. I'm saying, oh, it's too late. I can't say anything.
Right.
I have to just go with the flow. And so I go to the office, and I'll never forget it because there were 2 other people in the office. And he walked in, and before he sat down, he said, "Why are you here?" And I looked at him, and I tell you what came back to me. It was that picture of the double amputee that was at Walter Reed. And I remember the overwhelming feeling I had about what was going on at the retreat, that we were just trying to get this thing finished. And I was telling him what was going on. I said, I quit my job for 2 years. I said, this thing has to be done. It has to be done. And all of a sudden, I said, I am not a crier, but I burst out crying. It was just like, what in the world? I said, Shirley, help me. Don't do this. And so it was pretty wild. And James Shank, he looked over, and I remember him saying, he said, "Shirley, we're going to get you another house, okay?" And I was like, what?
Oh, my God.
Like, what?
Yeah.
And so within 30 minutes, though, he'd walk me back to the elevator, and he said, there are some people that just say things, but we're here to do things. And so we're gonna come, and we want to see that house that you're talking about, that you're working on now. We want to see that in 2 weeks. And sure enough, in 2 weeks, they came, and his staff, and we have developed such an amazing relationship since then. He sees the need. He understands. He's a warrior himself, and really appreciate what the community has done, and of course being a partner with us.
Yeah.
So
So now
been
they've
great.
funded $500,000
for the second house.
Yeah, for the new PenFed Grand Lodge.
Yeah.
And when it's all said and done, that's $1 million home.
Yeah.
Oh,
Beautiful 6-bedroom home with 2,000 square feet of activity room, sort of family activity room area for. We'll bring groups in that will be able to use it to train, like Mighty Oaks and others.
Yeah.
So that is really going to change a lot here
Oh,
at
it is.
the retreat.
It is.
It's going to open a lot up for us to be able to do, I think, and we're really looking forward to getting that done. If only we could just snap our fingers and have it done.
Yeah.
It just doesn't
you know how the
happen like
bills
that.
It's
go,
always,
John.
it's always, we have a tentative groundbreaking date, maybe by the end of this month.
Yeah.
And then another tentative date of it taking about 7 months to finish the house, but you know how it goes.
Yeah.
Doesn't always have to be, but Murphy's Law is always at work there. But I know by the end of the year we'll have it done. I know I have a really good feeling about this because we've got a the person that helped us renovate this house, Dave Baird, the one I told you about, who said, "Leave it to me. Don't do another thing on this house. I'm gonna take it over." He put me in touch with a builder, local builder, that's going to work with us in going out to his contacts, his resources, contractors and suppliers, and help along with the funding. We've got a good amount of funding to do it, but we need little details. We need furniture. We need appliances. We need things like that. So we're going to do a part of it pro bono again, and I'm sure people are going to be there to do that.
The community, yes.
Because it's such a great cause.
Sure.
It's such a great mission
Yeah.
that everybody wants to get involved when they hear it.
Yeah,
So-
I'm looking forward to the outdoor kitchen with the pizza
Oh,
oven.
yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
That was
It
a
all goes
generous,
back, it goes back to pizza.
generous donation by General Ham and his wife Christy. We're going to build that Patriot Pavilion right there
Oh, that's
next
gonna
to
be
the
beautiful.
house.
Yeah.
It really is going to be beautiful, and
yeah.
certainly it will expand the sort of area that
Yeah.
we have for these groups that are coming in, like Mighty Oaks. Will be able to bring in more veterans that need help with PTS and things
Yeah.
like that. So, it's really a game changer.
Yeah. One thing I want to say about everything that we're doing here, the thing from the beginning when we said we're going to start a nonprofit, we want to do something more, a little more substantial. We started it, but we had an idea. Okay, get the troops out of the hospitals with their families. We could see when we were there all the time how much it meant just for us to come in and talk to them and spend some time with them. How they responded, especially the parents of the wounded warriors, spouses, and it really was it was pulling on the heartstrings all the time, and we saw that. And also the warriors were there for some of them a year, or more.
Easily.
So the break, what happens when we work hard and we're stressed out, we want to take a vacation. So that was kind of our idea in the beginning. Just get the wounded warriors and their families together, spend a time where they can get away from the hospital environment and just bond and give them that week at the retreat. We thought, okay, that would be great. They feel good when they get back to their procedures and their routine at the hospital. But what we're seeing now when they come here, I don't think any of us ever thought we would get the results that we're getting now when they come. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
It's more than just a week of respite. It's a whole emotional life-changing thing, and a spiritual thing too, that they feed on it like a sponge when they're here. So that's the crux of our mission, and that's what's so important about it. And I really believe that's why our work is so important, and everybody recognizes it, and we'll continue to grow and we'll do good things.
Yeah, we see that all the time. Of course, Shirley, you meet with the families
Oh, absolutely.
and present them with a handmade quilt, the warrior with a quilt. And, I was a director of culinary services with the visiting chef program, and I'm also interact with the warriors regularly. And it's a gift. It's a gift for us to be able to do that. And it's not lost on us that we get to interact with the warriors. There are so many volunteers and so many people that come to the retreat and offer services and help and pick up sticks and paint things. And they never interact with the warriors, but they're still happy to do it.
Yeah.
And, so it's a responsibility on our part to represent the community that, provided this, what will soon be, $5 million property estate.
Plus, yeah.
I think we're going to be here for a good long while.
Oh yeah.
And there's still a need.
Oh,
And
such a need.
While it started with the active duty soldiers that were in the military hospital system at Walter Reed and Fort Belvoir, Thankfully, the U.S. military is deconflicted around the world. There isn't as many wounded warriors at the hospitals. Well, there's still some. And our mission has shifted, and we are providing services to more veterans than ever before. And that will continue. But as we kind of wrap it up, I'm going to ask each of you, what's the most important thing you want our listeners to know about the Warrior Retreat?
Well, getting back to the results that we've been getting, the most important thing is it's not only life changing, it's life saving, and we've seen it in a number of the testimonies that came back from the warriors who were on the brink or thinking about ending their lives. So, but when they came here and they come through a week of being together with their family and bonding and being able to let down the walls a little bit, because it's so difficult when you isolate. And a lot of them, when you have PTS, you start to isolate. And that's the destructive part about it. And you isolate too long, and you get to the point where you actually get to you lose hope, and you're in despair, and you take your life. But what we're finding is when they can grab onto that hope when they're here, and a number of them have said they did. They can get beyond it. They can see beyond it. They can see a new hope, that they can see something in the future that they used to have in the past. So that's what they continue on to strive for. So that's the most important thing to me.
Yeah. And Shirley, what about you?
I think about, I go back to our logo, the very center of it being the heart, right? And I go back to the first guest that we had at the retreat. It was a guy out of, warrior, out of Pennsylvania. And he had several deployments, but in the process of this, coming back home, his son, 17-year-old, was brutally murdered in his yard. And I remember him calling me 6 o'clock in the morning, and he said, I heard about the retreat. And I'm saying, how did you hear about it? We literally had just gotten through with the ribbon cutting. And so he said, I had a flyer from Christmas in my pocket. And so we began to feed this guy information. And one thing he said that sticks with me, he said, I don't know Haymarket, Virginia, never heard of it, but I do know love when I feel it. So the retreat, the staff, the community that have wrapped their arms around this warrior in this whole process, so that he can actually come and stay here and enjoy time with his family, it was precious to him. And so for us as a community to be able to offer love to these warriors and family, let me say this, they feel it, they know it. Okay?
Sure.
They don't have to know your name, that you cut the yard or you sweep the floors or you provide the blankets or they know love. When they walk in this house, they know love. In fact, we hear from many of them, when they drive up to the foot of the property, they can feel it. They can feel love. They feel peace. And so this is what we call home. So home away from home for them, but it's our home. Like one of the little ones said, it's like my home because I get to come and rake the yard. It's like, okay, well, great. So everybody, the community get to take a part. It's theirs, it's ours, it's the warrior, it's everybody's home. And so it's about love. It really is.
Yeah.
And it changes the dynamics of everyone and their lives. And so that's what we're here to do, to serve and to provide love for the family.
And that is, to me, that is a very simple prescription, if you want to call it that. but very effective. And I think probably the most effective prescription of someone that has PTS and you want to reach them. It's through the heart. One of our galas, I sat next to an assistant of the Surgeon General, and I was having a conversation with him, and I'm asking him about PTS and why we're having such a problem with it, and what are we doing with it? And he actually told me that what they're doing, all the medications that they have tried, are failing. I mean, they're Band-Aids, and they're not working to get them out of that position they're in, that hole they're in. And but love, caring, knowing that somebody's there and says, I care about you, I love you. It's almost like being a part of the family when you come here.
Sure.
And that gets through to them. That's so effective. Just a 1 week, so effective. Imagine if we could do that more and more with more retreats, more properties like this, or just more and more, I don't know, the government even stepping in and doing something to fund ideas like ours, organizations like ours, how effective it could be in dealing with PTS, and not only with the military, but going into the first responders also. There's a whole nother ocean of issues with PTS with the first responders in our country, and we need to help them too.
Well, listen, thank you very much for being the first guests on our first podcast. It's really been great. We really appreciate
Thank you, Larry.
it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I appreciate that.
Really.
And
enjoy it.
so we'll wrap it up here, and thank you for listening. Again, we'll be launching our episodes on the 1st and 15th of every month. And so subscribe. And if you have any questions or suggestions, you can email us directly at podcast@willingwarriors.org. Thanks again. Bye.
The Welcome Home podcast is brought to you by Willing Warriors, a nonprofit organization serving active duty service members and veterans since 2012. To learn more, please visit our webpage at willingwarriors.org.